Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Hello, dear brothers and sisters, respected viewers. Welcome once again to another episode of talking about Islam, let's say. And inshallah, from this pure land, from the land of Hussein, land of Abbas, from Karbala, we're going to be with you and talk about another quote of Commander of Faithful, Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, which has been written and chosen in the book which has been written by Brother Ali, who is my guest here in this studio right now. I would like to say salam to him, and after that I will start the speaking and the conversation by a question. Brother Ali, salam alaikum, and thank you for being here and accepting our invitation.
In the name of God, thank you for having me again for the second time, and I'm glad to be here, and inshallah we can
Inshallah, we're going to go through the same book, the fourth book that you have written about Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Actually, you said in the previous episode that you just wanted to write something great and found the best person who has said lots of great things is Imam Ali alayhi salam, and he took the most part, the main part, let's say, of your book. In another chapter that I just came across, I found another quote of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. I have written it right here. I would like to read it once again for you and the respected viewers. So tell me that why you choose this quote, and tell us that what you thought about it when you were writing it. Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam said, Allah Most High has made obligatory upon the leaders of justice to equate themselves with the weak ones from among people, so that the poor cannot be intimidated as a result of his poverty. It is from the Nahjul Balagha, I think, yeah, the sermon 209. So why did you choose this one, and what do you mean by bringing this quote in your book?
If I'm not mistaken, this quote follows a very brief explanation of which I titled Democracy in Islam for that chapter.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to do, and this will be the preview for why this quote is there, one of the things I wanted to do in the book was, regardless, again, non-religiously, to introduce the true ideals of Islam. Nothing to do with, what's going on today in the world. Just the facts of what Islam was built on. So that people get an idea of where this religion came from, or where this way of life and spirituality expanded from and reached. And I noticed, through the Quran, through the Prophet's sayings, the hadiths that we have, and through numerous other historical moments that are, written and spoken by many, not just Muslims, there have been many factors pointing towards the fact that Islam is actually a democracy. It's a democratic system. It's a democracy of a community living together. And we see that in many different aspects.
Can you just give us some, I want some examples.
Well, I'll give you a very early example so that it's not washed over by any political activism or anything. So, towards the beginning of Islam, there was a person called Bilal al-Habashi.
Yeah.
This person, became a Muslim, and when he became a Muslim, prior to being a Muslim, he was a slave.
Yeah.
He was owned by a person, and he was a slave. He was property. He was not human. He was property.
Was not free person,
by law, he was property.
Yeah.
He learned of Islam. He learned that in Islam everybody's equal.
Yeah.
He learned that in Islam you have a say, you have a voice.
There's no difference between the black and white, no racism.
There's no racism, there's no sexism, there's none of that. Everybody had a voice in Islam. Everybody had a say. Everybody could contribute. Everybody could ask, And contrary to people's beliefs, women could go to the Prophet and ask if they had a question. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
Women can go to the Prophet and ask a question.
Yeah, everyone.
It's not a male society, dominant society, none of that stuff. So Bilal now becomes a Muslim. He bases his immigration into Islam on the key code of equality.
Yeah.
Because that was the most important thing for a person who's a slave. You ask someone who doesn't have freedom, what do you want? Freedom. You ask someone who doesn't have water, what do you want? Water.
Water, yeah.
Right? People don't want the things they don't know. They want
Sure.
the things they want because they
People do.
need.
So mostly,
Yeah.
you're talking, mostly the people who just gathered around the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, were thinking of equality, because in that time, in that society, equality was a problem.
Yes, it was a lacking
it was a
issue.
lacking issue, yeah, actually, and slavery and these kind of behavior with the slaves
Correct.
was a very
Definitely.
bad situation. So those slaves, they all thought that, okay, this is a good opportunity for all of us to be Muslim and be free.
Very true. And so this person enters Islam.
Yeah.
Now, let's bypass all the other stuff. We have a day where the Prophet comes and says, well, we are going to call for prayer. We're going to do this thing. It's called a call for prayer. Teaches the community what a call to prayer is, and, you know, explains, just like everything else. And so the Prophet says, we need a caller to prayer to call. And that is the azan that we today hear in all the mosques around the world. So remember, a lot of people, as you said, have entered into, you know, they converted and entered into this field of Islam. Many of them were musicians, singers, people with good voices, right?
Yeah.
So when the time for the call to azan came, a lot of people wanted the privilege and the pride of being the one to call.
I would like just to mention this, that in that time, poetry was so important.
Yes,
and
that's why
people were poem and just saying poetry, they were so important. And people in that time actually had very great voices, because when you want to read a poetry, you need to be very powerful in speaking, and your voice must be with a great volume to impact.
It has to be an auditorial voice,
to impact on the others. So I'm with you that in that time, maybe some people had very great voices around the Holy Prophet Muhammad.
So going into the culture, we can imagine that a certain percentage of people who converted to Islam were of those people, correct? Yeah. Okay. So now there's those famous people from the voice section people who are sitting there smiling because they know, hey, I have the best voice. And naturally, I'm going to be chosen to say the call. Who else is going to say it? I have the loudest voice. I have the nicest voice. I'm famous. Look at my history. I have albums and albums of poems, right? So the Prophet says, okay, where's Bilal? And everybody looks at the Prophet and looks around and says, why is he looking for Bilal at this point? I mean, what does he want? Because remember, these are converts who just recently converted. And it takes a while for you to change heart. Even if you really believe in something, you cannot say, I don't believe in this. You cannot say, I'm a Muslim, and then tomorrow morning you are thinking...
You change all your mind.
Yeah, it's impossible. It takes time.
You have your background.
Yeah, progress is slow. You can become an amazing Muslim one day, but it will take time. You cannot just transfer overnight into any religion or into any field or anything. Even if you become a doctor, you go to school, you learn your surgery, your first surgery is not going to be as well done as your 85th surgery, correct?
Sure, indeed.
So these are people who are not really that advanced in their spiritual learning of Islam yet. The Prophet's just beginning to teach. This is the beginning of Islam. And they're thinking, maybe the Prophet wants a drink. Maybe the Prophet... They're automatically tying Bilal through racism in their historical account to offering something, to slavery. Where's Bilal? Because I forgot my jacket. Where's Bilal? I forgot this. Go get it. You know, they're thinking like that. They're not even thinking that what the Prophet's going to do. The Prophet, and when they asked for Bilal, he wasn't sitting close in the common circle.
Why not?
He himself coming, again, the same thing I was trying to tell you. Everybody has their background that they need to slowly shed when they come into Islam, right? We shed our skin and we're reborn into Islam. So he's shedding his old skin. His old skin would not allow him to sit with his master.
Because he still thinks that he's a slave.
Thinks he's not, maybe he knows he's not a slave, but he still is not so comfortable in society to walk in. If you're a slave for 20 years, and
it's hard to feel like a free
you're not
man.
going to wake up the next day and walk in the middle of the street and command authority and have confidence.
It's hard to forget about all your background.
The confidence will come over time and over experiences. So now this Bilal, they look for him, they find him, he says, come, And he comes and he says, you are going to perform the azan, the call to prayer. And as you know, this is what happened.
Yeah.
Bilal
he was the first one who
was the first one who calls prayer. We know
prayer.
from all accounts of history, religious and non, and any historical background, that Bilal had an awful voice.
Yeah.
It's a fact.
Yeah.
Yet the Prophet chose him.
Although he had a bad voice.
Yeah.
For saying adhan
And
performing.
he was not a nobleman of the early society. He was not of the great families.
He even wasn't an Arab person to be able to pronounce the Arabic words.
Yes, and that's the other thing. He was not the best pronouncer of the Arabic world, right? So now, you take all these things and you say, why would the Prophet make all these mistakes, right? As a person, forget religion, just looking at this analytically
just being at the same place
critical,
at the same time,
you would say, why is the Prophet making all these mistakes by selecting this person? What is wrong here? Well, it's not that the Prophet's making mistakes. It's that you are not in the same line and path with the Prophet, knowing that we are here trying to promote equality.
Or let's say you don't have the same mind that the Holy Prophet has.
Of course you don't.
And he's thinking something much superior to what you are thinking, because if it wasn't like this, then he wouldn't be a prophet.
Unfortunately, as humans though, we like to argue about everything that we don't understand ourselves. And that's also in the Quran, in the chapter of the cave, somewhere along the middle of the chapter, God states that the humans are the most argumentative creatures that I've built. And you know, it's true. Here's an example of it. I mean, we argue about everything it's a fact. Because we want to understand it. If I don't understand it, it cannot be right. It cannot convince me. I don't have the faith or the submission to God to say, I know it is right because God willed it this way. But I also must know that I'm not at a position to understand what God has willed yet, because I've not reached that spiritual marker. When I reach that spiritual marker, is going to be, I'm going to know when I reached it. And do you know how? Because you're going to look back at this issue and you're going to understand it and accept it when you used to argue about it. So you're growing, and now you understood it. What does that mean? You accepted it, but you were arguing about it a couple of years ago. That means you developed spiritually to the point of understanding what it is that God was trying to teach you, but me and you were too ignorant to understand. We didn't have the education.
We all tried to argue.
We all tried to argue about things we don't understand.
But once we understood it and we accepted it,
submit.
Then we say, when we submit,
right? We submit because we say, of course it's like this. So it takes time. So that's an example. You're asking me to give you an example of equality. That's an early example of equality. There are many examples. And again, as I said, if you notice the chapter, it's a half-page chapter, correct? In my book. The reason why I did that, I could have exactly done this. I could have brought dozens and dozens of examples and historically elaborated on the chapter. I don't want to do that in the book. I want people, if you want to know that there are many examples of democracy in Islam, there are many books about democracy and democratic examples in Islam that you can go and read about. Go and educate yourself. Don't expect one person to sit on a TV show for 20 minutes and give you your life's book and path and following, because that will not happen.
Can I give you the conclusion of this story that you just said about Bilal? What was the reason that Holy Prophet Muhammad chose Bilal, and where is the democracy in such a choice, you know?
So the quote of Imam Ali that you mentioned in the beginning, the ending of this quote says that so that the poor person cannot be intimidated by their poverty, correct?
Yes.
Okay. What is an intimidation by poverty? Intimidation by poverty is basically me being poor and knowing that I can never have this position because I'm poor. I'm a nobody. I just stand in the corner and I watch as the beautiful people get their share of the beautiful life because I'm poor.
Because I'm poor, so I have no right to be.
I have no right to be there.
In their position.
This is not equality anymore. The Imam in that quote is saying the person at the top, right? The authority, the person at the highest level has to feel connected to the person at the lowest level so that they don't allow this intimidation to happen, so that everybody is level. Now the Prophet is creating a level field by bringing the lowest of what people believe.
Even in the level of thinking,
Yes.
everything should be,
Yes.
must be justice,
Yes,
must be level.
Yes.
Must be,
You cannot be democratic in a car park and say, you know what, just because you're richer, you park closer. No, no, no. Everybody parks where they find
No,
a
because
spot.
the person who's got no car, then what should he do?
And not only that, I mean, if you do that there, and then you come out, and then you go into, for example, you know, whatever the supermarket that the parking belongs to, and then you say rich people can go to this line because it's faster.
Yeah.
Well, what's the point of being democratic here then? You might as well just
There's no
not
point.
have democracy, right? You can't have democracy in stages and have it work. You either have democracy or you don't have democracy. And Islam says you have democracy. I'm not talking about today. I'm not talking about how
You're talking
Islam
about the
is-
idea of Islam
I'm
as
talking
general.
about the ideal of Islam when it was brought. So the Imam, the reason why I bring the quote of the Imam, and I'll come back to this later.
So let's have a break.
Yeah, let's
okay?
have the break and then we'll...
And inshallah, after the break, we're going to go through it deeply and
Yes.
talk about it, inshallah.
Perfect.
Let's have a break, and inshallah, we'll be back again.
صرت مخدوم علي محبتك دوم خادم صرت مخدوم علي محبتك دوم رفعني حبك للسماء وخدمتك سلطان رفعني حبك للسماء وخدمتك سلطان يا حسين خدمتك سلطان مملوك أعيش بحضرتك للملكيتني كل شي ما أصغرك أكبر بالعشي وباسمك أبقى أمشي.
Okay, back to our topic, Brother Ali. Let's see what you've got for us according and regarding this topic and how democracy is introduced in Islam according to this quote of Imam Ali alayhi salam.
Okay, we stopped at the example of Bilal, and I think it's enough to just give the example and not focus too much on that example. What's important though that we must take from that is that the Prophet understood that he has to make physical examples in different places and times to show why equality matters. I mean, you know, if you think about it, it's better to have someone with a louder voice. It's better to have someone who can say the words properly.
Definitely, yeah.
And it's better to have someone with a clearer voice. All of those things are better to call for prayer.
Yeah.
It does not make sense logically to find someone who can't speak the language and makes mistakes, phonetic mistakes in the words, in the sounds, who has a voice that's not loud enough for people to hear. And you got to go back 1400 years. There was no microphones and
Yeah.
there was no editing voices
No
or anything like that.
amplifier
Yeah.
or something like that. Yeah.
No amplifiers, nothing like that. And, you know, so there wasn't really any reason. But we also know that, again, outside of religion, you know, I don't want to make this conversation that the Prophet was given these orders by God. Let's even take that out, because you mentioned there are people who don't believe in God.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk to them too. We're not only going to talk to Shias, because that's how you expand.
We're going through the
We're going
logic
to talk
of
through the logic of
this
why these
example
things
and
happen.
this historic event.
Exactly. And we're going to speak to the world in a way that the world can understand, in a
Yeah.
way that the world can
Not only the
talk
Shia
to us.
Muslims
Yes,
or
because,
those who believe in
if
Islam.
my prerequisites to, you know, for me to say God said so and that's how it is, well, I'm already putting prerequisites that I believe in God, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Shia, I'm this, I'm this. I have so many things here that people are going to pick
So
out.
you are going to get people out of the circle
Exactly.
that we are talking
I'm
about. We
going to
want
talk about
everyone to
everybody,
be in the
everybody.
circle. Yeah.
No matter who you are, where you're from, what your background is, what your race is, whatever you are, even if you are not a human who understands me speaking right now, pay attention. You know? So the Prophet is a person. Why did I say out of religion? Because I want to say the Prophet was a great person. Okay?
Yeah.
But I don't want to say it Islamically, in an Islamic
in
language.
general.
I want to say it in general. Anybody will tell you that a man who was orphaned, penniless, who was working for a lady who was wealthy,
Yeah.
you know, got to the point of being the leader of this great organization, let's just call it, for the sake of argument, is a person who knows what he is doing. He's not a person who doesn't know what he's doing, right? He knows what he's doing.
He's got an idea.
From any perspective, even if you don't believe in God, can you say this person, Muhammad, didn't know what he was doing?
No.
No, right? Okay.
Sure,
So the
say
whole
that
world,
he was an intelligent person.
you think the whole world will agree to that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Perfect. So then if we all agree on that, we must agree that the reason he made Bilal say the first call to prayer is in his intelligence of doing that, beyond our non-intelligence of thinking of amplifiers and all
Good
these things,
voices,
good
beautiful
voices and
voice,
stuff like that. And unfortunately, you notice this today. Today, we have people who say the call to prayer or who recite the Holy Quran or who have speeches. And one of the important things that they teach them to become that person is voice management, voice amplification, and all the other artistic parts. Whereas the Quran,
Says
again, and the
totally something
Prophet
else.
says, the best of you humans, the mightiest of the humans, is the one who has the highest level of piety and faith.
إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم. Exactly the word in the Holy Quran
Exactly,
says, yeah.
right? So I say it in English because some people, may not know it in Arabic, but that's a Quranic verse.
Yeah.
And the Prophet has emphasized that, right? So this is an emphasis of that right now. This is an emphasis of that. Bilal showed throughout his life to be a pious Muslim, did he not? He was a good follower of Islam in his life.
Definitely.
He was not a troublesome Muslim.
No.
There are some troublesome Muslims that we can give examples of, but Bilal was not one. So being that Bilal was a good person, the Prophet chose somebody who in the spiritual part of them.
So he deserves to be the one who recites the azan.
Why? Because he is faithful and pious and following the right path. The voice should not matter.
And this is something that everyone can get, regardless the position that he has, the face that he's got, the voice, or anything that he has got nothing to do with it.
Nothing. And the connecting part you asked me about.
Yeah.
Here's the connecting part. Earlier, you asked me when we were speaking alone about the connectivity of the high and the low in society and how can you create equality. And so I'm going to answer you now. If the Prophet chose Bilal to say the call to prayer, he is feeling the piety and the faithfulness of Bilal and choosing him outside of his economic and social constraints to say, you are going to go do this job. Now, it has to be that the Prophet has to also be humble to allow Bilal to go up on that stage. Because if the Prophet was seeking to be noble and to be aggrandized, he would not choose him. He would choose someone, a son of one of the great sheikhs in the community, a son of one of the leaders of the community, or something to favoritize
just
himself.
to show the etiquette of Islam, in a very, great way, as is known, mostly for among the people.
So basically, the Prophet would have chosen someone else with political ambition. But the fact that the Prophet was humble to the point that he said, there is no politics, there's no sociology, there's nothing here. There's only God. And whoever's on the right path is going to get the call. This guy is on the right path. I'm going to let him give the call. And I'm going to make an example that there is nobody better or worse. Because when that person, this is the beauty of it, when that person came down from the call to prayer, and this is the tradition that all Muslims have today, where does the person who gives call to prayer, where do they stand in the line of prayer after they give the call to prayer? They stand in the first line. They always have a spot empty for them. This is tradition. That tradition started with Bilal. The Prophet said, make way for him, because, but now he comes down.
He wants a place to
he has
stay
nowhere
with
to
us, yeah.
he has nowhere to pray. He has to go all the way to the end of the line, and he says, well, he just called to prayer. He did something good for us,
Yeah,
and
so
everybody came
let's
to
respect him and let's
yes,
just put him in the first line.
make room for him, right? So he comes and he said, now who is he praying amongst? You know very well. The first line is normally reserved where
Yeah.
it shouldn't be. It
shouldn't be,
but it's normally
because
reserved
it has a great
for the
thawab, you know.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's reserved for the greats within our society. And those greats might be the economical greats, the political
Yeah,
greats.
which is not true.
Yeah.
The great people
Should be
those
the
who
Bilals.
are, yeah, should be the Bilals. Those who are much
Exactly.
more close
The
to
Alis,
Almighty.
the Bilals, these are the people who should be on the
Yeah,
first line.
In the first line, yeah.
You know, but unfortunately, sometimes you notice in the first lines there is the person who's going to deceive
The
you,
richer people,
the richer people,
more
the
powerful
political
people.
people who are going to stab you one day and your family and be the cause to kill your whole family. Those are the people standing in the first line.
So Ali, right now I'm just thinking about something that right now, I don't know if it's true to say it right now here in this show or not, but to be honest, nowadays we see that the Islamic societies are suffering from some kind of contradiction, some kind of, you know, let's say paradoxes.
Yes.
That's just, I think that that's just because they don't apply exactly the teachings of Holy Prophet Muhammad and Commander of Faithful Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. If we apply them totally, hands over 100%, then we're not going to have such easy problems. Sometimes we are facing very, very easy problems, very, very easy issues that are so funny. But if we were in a true way, if we just pass through the true and right path of Amir al-Mu'minin, then we are not having these kind of problems.
You know, in fact, there is no difficult problem in the world. There isn't. There is not one difficult problem in the world. And you know why? Again, in many different holy books, in many religions, many spiritual ways, every religion has a similar version to the Quranic idea that God states God does not burden a human more than the weight that they can support. Okay? This is in many religions. Christianity has this. You know, I've read it and I know of it in Judaism. The Hindu religions have this.
In Quran, exactly, it says, I'm sorry, I'm just bringing the Quranic verse of it. It says, لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. That's exactly the words. Yeah.
So this is available in many different areas, right? Many different spiritual paths. So we have within us the opportunity to resolve every problem we face. So there's no difficult problem. A difficult problem is a problem that cannot be resolved. We don't have difficult problems.
Yeah.
Being that we don't have difficult problems, it means that we are just creating our problems because we are not on the path anymore. So when you go off the path that you're supposed to be on, you are creating problems beyond the necessary. So you have a flat tire, all you have to do is, you know, change your tire with the spare tire that you have in your car and go on and fix your tire another day, right?
Yeah.
Now, one of the conditions is to fix the tire that blew. You don't fix the tire that blew. Now you have a spare tire in your car that's non-functional. You have a flat tire on your long distance drive to somewhere, and for 2 hours there's no town around you, nothing, and your cell phone doesn't work because it's in a bad area, bad reception area. You caused your problem.
Yeah.
But if you were working on the path that every time you turn your car on and you drive, you should have that spare tire in full repair mode. Again, the flat would, you know, you would change it and you would go on.
And you will go on
Exactly.
and you will have no very hard problem.
Exactly. So our world today is like this. We create our own problems either through ignorance or through argument, just like I told you, you know, the verse, and many other negative ways that we contribute ourselves. Here, going back to equality, again in the quote, the Imam says, you know, the person on top should feel, unite and connect with the person on the bottom. So now I'll take you to the United States. You know, they say the government is for the people and it is also by the people, right?
Yeah.
So this government is for the people for, you know? They're working for, so they're connected to the people completely as a whole. And they're by the people. They're by the same people who are now governing the rest of the people, who can come from any area of society. It doesn't have to be wealthy, it doesn't have to be poor. They have a system of democracy. This system, 1400 years ago, around, give or take,
Yeah.
has been said by this gentleman.
And right now we see that it's applied not in Muslim countries.
Now we see it, no, never mind it's applied. Now we see that democracy is the key to successful living.
Yeah.
And every country, even the Arab Spring,
Yeah.
you know, all the
Whoever
Arab
applies
Spring
it,
and
they
everything
will
is applying
succeed.
it in every country throughout the Arabic world, because they're almost the last of that. But a lot of countries have applied democracy. I mean, Russia went from the USSR to Russia. They went from a communist,
Yeah.
you know, to a capitalist system, and they went from a communist system to a democratic system, and changed.
So they all found that
Yeah.
the democracy is the best way of
exactly
ruling
and
the
here you have
society.
one around 1,400
And that's
years
exactly
ago.
what for
This person's
14
not only saying,
centuries ago has been said. Yeah.
he's not only saying be democratic, he's going one step further that most countries have not reached yet.
Yeah.
He's going one step further in saying the bottom and the top have to be aligned
Just
and
like
connected
in
on
one
one
level.
stop. Where do you see this? You see this in Sweden, I can say. You see this in Canada. You see this in some very few and rare
Yeah.
countries around the world, right? But you don't see it in all democracies yet.
Yeah.
So we still haven't even reached to the perfection of that
Of
saying.
this single quotation of Imam
And
Ali.
this is the saying in
Thank
the beginning
you so
of Islam.
much, Brother Ali. This is so great topic and a great and beautiful conversation between me and you. And inshallah, in the next episode, we're going to go more through these beautiful words of Imam Ali alayhi salam. And I'm sure that the respective viewers are also lucky and happy for such a conversation, inshallah. Thank you so much, everyone, for being with us and tuning in. Inshallah, in the next episode, stay tuned with us. We are going to go through more quotations of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Have a great night and goodbye. Thank you so much.